The system asked me to capture the male protagonist, a Y-ander who had the ability to read minds since childhood, but grew up to be cruel, cold-hearted, gloomy, and withdrawn. I pondered for a moment and chose to enter the world when the male protagonist was 1 year old. The system said, "From today on, you will become his guardian and teach him to know the law, respect women, be optimistic, and be a good person." I remained calm. Excellent capture should start with education. The system was convinced by me. You are right. So that day it was snowing heavily, and I picked up the 1 year old male protagonist, Yin Zhu, who was abandoned in the hospital. 6 years later, in the welfare home I opened, he asked me in a baby voice, "Dean, what does capture mean?" I touched his head. "It means that I want you to feel the care and love of this world." The 7 year old Yin Zhu's eyes were sparkling, and he was so happy that he turned around. I loved the dean too. Beside him, the male protagonist, future subordinates, partners, mortal enemies, and Bai Guang surrounded me, chirping. I loved the dean the most. The system prompted that the male protagonist's favorability was full and the host's mission was completed. After the sudden death, I was forced to bind to the system and accepted a strategy task. The system sent me the original content. Looking at the handsome and indifferent boy in the data, he fell into deep thought. He was being stepped on by someone with bruises all over his body. His eyes were filled with an inorganic gray, and he was indifferent as if he had left the whole world. The system said in a serious manner, "When you enter the world, you can pick him up and take him home. But he is working outside at this time and is bullied. He may not trust you, so you need to use love to influence him. In addition, he has a childhood sweetheart who is his white moonlight. According to the test, after he and the white moonlight meet again, you will have misunderstandings." I interrupted it. "How old is he? He looks like a teenager." The system paused for a moment. "This is a photo of him when he was 14 years old. Then why is he working outside? He should be studying at this time, right?" I frowned. The system explained. "He dropped out of school because he had no money. Compulsory education is 9 years. The welfare home should also be responsible for his tuition and miscellaneous fees." I pointed out the problem. The system was a little confused. "Is that so? It seems that the system in this area is not perfect." I pondered for a moment. "Send me to this world. I have already thought of what to do." The system came to life. "Then which time node do you want to choose? When he was 14 years old and was insulted by customers, or when he was 18 years old and fainted in the alley, or when he was 23 years old?" I interrupted. "Of course, it was when he was 1 year old. Yin Zhu was weak and sick when he was born. His father was unknown and his mother died of dystocia. His distant relatives abandoned him at the door of the hospital when he was 1 year old. It was a cold winter day with heavy snow. Yin Zhu had a even lost part of his hearing, but he happened to have the golden finger of the male protagonist, the mind-reading ability. From that day on, his world was silent, but malice was overwhelming. I stood at the entrance of the hospital looking at the baby sleeping soundly in my arms and said bluntly, "Since you want to conquer the hero, you should give me some cheats such as money, otherwise the hero will starve to death." After helping me to open the cheats, the system was a little uneasy and asked me for the 13th time, "How about I transfer you to 10 years later? People can't be beastly." I shook my finger. "I'm 22 years old now. Things like conquering are allowed at 1 year old, but not at 18, 6, and 11. Bathed in the glory of justice and law, the system was dazed and speechless for a moment. "Let's go," I said. "There are many things to do. For example, I should check what qualifications are needed to open an orphanage. The Bowie orphanage where Yin is really lax in management, but it doesn't matter. I can help to fix it." I wrapped the baby's swaddling clothes a little tighter and took him into the hospital. "I hope it's not too late now. His hearing can still be saved." The system helped me to prove my identity. I first sent Yin Zhu to the hospital for examination and treatment, and then took over the Bowie orphanage, which looked shabby. This orphanage has been built for many years. There are no children or caregivers. It was only temporarily taken over this year. Everything is in chaos and needs to be rebuilt. I worked in the orphanage before, and I am very familiar with all these processes, not to mention the help of the system. Yin Hizu was an abandoned baby. After the hospital was handed over to the police station under my operation, Yin Hizu was adopted by me and entered the Bowie orphanage, becoming the only child in the orphanage. The plot is exactly the same, but the difference is that the director of the orphanage this time was replaced by me. While I was taking care of Yin Hizu, I rebuilt the entire welfare home and improved the infrastructure in an orderly manner. Everything went very smoothly. The system was shocked by this because Yin Hizu's favorability towards me was rising steadily and had reached 80. I was not surprised. A child of a few years old must be closest to the person who takes care of him every day. Although Yin Hizu did not know what love was, he had long learned to stretch out his hands when I hugged him and give me a silly smile. Every time this happened, the system would talk to itself. How could this happen? Can it be like this? It turns out that it can be like this. I ignored its trance, looked up at the newly renovated welfare home in front of me, and said with satisfaction, the efficiency is good, but I don't know if there are any supporting educational facilities nearby. I looked at the policy in this area. The welfare home can have its own school. This Bowie welfare home is obviously not qualified, and I need to work harder. The system did not understand and chose to remain silent. Because he was sent to the hospital in time and I took good care of him, Yin Hizu was very healthy. When he was 3 years old, he could run and jump, and he would call me director in a baby voice. Little Yin Hizu asked me, Dean, what does my name mean? I hugged him and told him, it happened to snow on the day you came to the world, and your mother happened to like you very much. He was still too young to understand the meaning of death and separation, but I didn't want to erase the origin of his name. Yin Hizu seemed to understand. My name is what my mother likes, and my mother likes me too, right? I touched his head. She loves you very much. He became happy and smiled silly again. On the day when I taught Yin Hizu to write her own name, I asked the system, your systems are divided into many types, right? The system was stunned by my question and thought seriously. I don't know, but we are all strategy systems. Do you have colleagues? Yes, but I don't have a name. Do they all have names? They all gave themselves names. The system said blankly. A good friend I knew before was named Xiao Ci, and there were Xiao Jing, Xiao Yi, Xiao Shi. I asked, then why don't you give yourself a name like them? The system hesitated for a few seconds, but other colleagues said that they were not doing their jobs properly, and they went to do other things after naming themselves. You can also do other things, such as running this welfare home with me, I said, but I'm also doing strategy at the same time, so this is not considered not doing my job properly. Is that so? The system seemed excited. Can I also give myself a name? Yes, I said softly. What do you want to be called? Then I will open a welfare home with you, he said. I want to be called Xiaofu. I thought about it. Xiaofu, it sounds nice. He didn't move for a long time, but I guessed that he probably went to share his joy with his friends. On the day when the welfare house was officially reopened, I took Yin Hisu to welcome the new children. I read the information. Probably because of the plot attraction, Yin Hizu's former childhood sweetheart and later white moonlight Iran also came. Her parents died in a car accident. After that, she was sent to the welfare house. When she was 8 years old, her adoptive parents took her to immigrate abroad. The plot did not think too much about this, but Imran developed from a well-behaved and cute little girl to the classic vicious female supporting image later. This experience of going abroad must not be pleasant. I carefully identified and found that the adoptive parents did not meet the requirements of adoption at all, or it was a problem of the welfare house's regulations. I looked at the timid little girl in front of me, squatted down and gently touched her head. Ran, good boy. This will be your home from now on. She looked at me ignorantly. Maybe my eyes were full of patience, and the most sensitive child could not feel any malice. She carefully stretched out her chubby little hand and pinched my fingers. The little girl's white and cute face still had traces of tears, but when she was held in my arms and ate the candy I gave her, she smiled for the first time today, unlearned to call me director in a soft voice. Yin Hisu had a tense face and was a little nervous as he took the new children to visit the welfare home. This was a task I solemnly assigned to him. He was also quite responsible and had the demeanor of a senior, moving around among a group of new children. I couldn't help but smile when I saw him comforting that one, "Don't cry," giving this one a candy, and then clenching his fist and swearing that this is definitely the best welfare home. In the afternoon, I took the children to take a nap. Yin Hezu looked very excited and couldn't sleep at all. He even whispered to me, "Director, among the new children, I like Lu Han the most." "He is so cool," I said. "Huh? Why does the name Lu Han sound a little familiar?" I looked at the birthmark on the face of the little boy named Lu Han and finally remembered that this was Yin Hu's future nemesis, the gangster boss Lu Heng. "I think I have to put the law popularization course on the agenda." I thought, "Lu Heng looks very timid now, keeps his head down and doesn't like to talk. With a big birthmark on his face and low intelligence, he was abandoned by his parents." Abandonment is a crime. I looked at Lu Heng's self-abased and sad expression and brought Yin Hezu over. He probably heard my voice, showing an expression of wanting to cry, and said sullenly, "Dean, Lu Heng's parents don't want him anymore." Yin Hezu, who has the ability to read minds, never hides this from me, but he and I have made a promise. This is a secret between the two of us. So I also said seriously, "It's wrong for his parents to do this. They will be arrested." Yin Hezu seemed to understand. "I want to make friends with him." "Then take him to the garden to play," I said. "Didn't you tell me last time that you wanted to play on the seesaw with your friends?" Yin Hu's eyes lit up, but soon wilted again. "But now it's nap time." "It doesn't matter. This time is a special case." I touched his head. "Hezu, we will all be Lu Heng's family in the future. I want Lu Heng to be happy." Yin Hezu was full of energy, yes. I opened the door to the garden, waved, and watched the two short figures cheering softly and running towards the seesaw in the sun. I returned to the dormitory, and as expected, the little heads lowered. I couldn't help laughing. "Can't you sleep?" There was silence. And Ran raised her head, pointed to the garden outside the window, and said in a baby voice, "I want to play with the dean." "Then let's go to the garden together," I said with a smile. "But it's nap time now. Don't do it next time." The children, who were originally reserved and uneasy, suddenly brightened their eyes, responded together, and ran to the garden like a group of happy birds. I followed them slowly and chatted with Xiao Fu. "Why do they have such a high degree of affection for your host? I have never seen such a fast progress in strategy." "Do you know a story?" I thought about it. The devil sealed in the bottle once promised that if someone released him, he would give that person unlimited power and wealth. However, after being picked up a few years later, he was dissatisfied with the fisherman who released him, thinking that the fisherman came too late. I have the story in my database. "The same is true for love," I said calmly. "The strategy is essentially an exchange, giving love and getting love. But if they haven't had it since childhood, they will be in trouble. What do you think those disguised, impure loves can get in return?" So if I appeared in Hezu's life when I was 15 or 16, of course I could not compare to Ran, who grew up with me. In order to succeed in the strategy, did the host choose to enter the 1-year-old time point? Not exactly. I smiled, picked up a child who ran towards me, and touched his head. "I just want to tell you one thing. The word strategy is too broad. There are too many kinds of love in this world, and teaching them love is, of course, a strategy." "Host, you are really different from other people I have met." "How many people have you met? You are just a child in my eyes." I held the little girl and sat on the swing. "Maybe in your test, you chose me because of my past work." "Hey, what did you do before?" He was a little confused, but there weren't any people who loved you before, host. "Really?" I paused and smiled lightly. "I used to work in special education. I am the absolute freak in the family. My brothers and sisters all have their own lofty ambitions, either to take over the company or to shine in the field of art. Only I dived into it. I went to a small county town to teach for a few years. After I came back, I worked as a teacher in a special school. Finally, I opened a welfare home. Most orphans are not healthy children. They often have various physical and mental defects. At first, when my family came to visit me, they were frightened by some scars on my body. They asked me more than once, "Zhang Lingxi, are you crazy?" Outsiders can't understand why Zhang Lingxi, who has been pampered since childhood, has a Zhang family without any nobleness. But in a person's life, there will always be one or two things that completely change themselves. I have no intention of judging what is noble and what is vulgar, nor do I intend to use some high-sounding words to prove how unworldly I am. In fact, I am just an ordinary person among the masses, but I just choose to take this path. So I don't care about these doubts and ridicules and smile slightly. I am doing what I want to do like you. Xiao Fu asked me, so what is the thing that completely changed you? Who knows, I said. My childhood memories are very vague, but there should be such a thing. Actually, I still remember that our school once held a charity event. We wore puffy skirts and small suits and went to the special school next door to give gifts, but we didn't see any students from the special school that day. I heard their teachers say that they were afraid that they would hurt us, so they locked them in the dormitory. We put our books and clothes on their desks and chairs, took a few more photos, and left. I saw a book on the table, a fairy tale book, with a line of words written crookedly on it. Xiaozhen asked what the stars look like. I also want to know, is it delicious? In that fairy tale, the stars in the sky are all candies. Can't Shen see the stars? What about the owner of the fairy tale book? Hasn't he eaten candies? I looked at my delicate little skirt, took out a candy from my pocket with great effort, and quietly put it in the book. Before leaving, I glanced at the dormitory building, and I saw a few dirty children crowded in front of the window looking at us. I suddenly felt a little sad. I only brought one candy and only put one in so that only one child could taste the stars. I have been busy for a week. The admission of a new batch of children has brought vitality and vigor to this small piece of land. From the small milk brands supplied to the children to the big recruitment of new welfare home teachers, all of this needs to be done by me as a lone commander. Fortunately, I have a cheating tool, Xiao Fu, which can help me monitor the children's conditions to prevent them from having accidents. Otherwise, I will be too busy, even if I split into 3 people. Our welfare home is not large, and I have already recruited cooks, cleaners, doctors, nurses, and caregivers. However, the position of cultural teacher is too important. I will also have to discuss opening classes later, so I must recruit someone who is reliable enough. After several rounds of interviews, I finally found the person who suited my taste the most. She was a girl who could be compared to a star in terms of appearance. She was very young, with short hair, red lips, and white teeth, a gentle personality, and a bright red mole at the corner of her eye. To be honest, I could tell that she came from a good family. From her conversation and temperament, she should be a girl who had been pampered since childhood. Her skin color was slightly darker, and her cheeks were red from the Highland sunshine. My name is an Ruo Chun. The girl's eyes were as bright as stars. Hello, Ding Zhang. I also extended my hand to her. Hello, are you O Chun? And are you O Chun's employment gave me more time to worry about the schooling of these children. Orphanages with conditions set up their own classrooms, while those without conditions generally arranged for the children to go to school on a commuter basis. Considering the special characteristics of several of the children, I decided to set up different classes for them to attend classes separately. After completing various procedures, I took an Ruo Chun to recruit a group of new teachers and officially started teaching courses in the institute. There are not many children in the welfare home, so I only divided one class. The name was democratically selected. The children liked the word bluebird, and the first class of the Bowie welfare home, the bluebird class, was born. I have always been very experienced in this aspect, and then Ruo Chun obviously did her homework, so the course was carried out very smoothly. In fact, in the enlightenment stage of children, what should be done is not to spread knowledge, but to cultivate habits and form personality. I opened a story class and told them a story every day. In the fairy tale world, the sky will always clear up, the bad guys will always fail, the princess will meet the prince, the ugly duckling will become a beautiful white swan, and the small animals rescued will come back to repay their kindness. Of course, life is more than just fairy tale. Maybe when they grow up, they will understand that reality is not what they think, but I still hope they can believe in fairy tale. However, after the story class, an Ruo Chun will also come to give them a safety education class. Don't have the intention to harm others, but be on guard against others. You can teach them to treat the world well, but you also need someone to tell them that not everyone has good intentions, and you must be vigilant enough and learn to protect yourself. I appointed Yin Hizu as the monitor of the Bluebird class. The little boy has awakened his sense of responsibility and works hard for the harmony of the class every day. The monitor is always motivated, but sometimes he is frustrated, such as today. Dean Luhang cried today. He lay on my knees gloomily. I heard him wondering why his parents don't want him. Luhan has become much more cheerful since entering the welfare home, but occasionally he still secretly cries in the evening. Yen Hizu can't help his friends solve such troubles, so he can only ask me what to do. In my description, his mother loves him very much, so Yin Hizu doesn't understand why Liu Han's parents abandoned their child. I touched Yin Hizu's head. Xiao He, people are different. Some parents don't love their children. Yin Hizu pursed her lips. Why did you give birth to him? There are many reasons. We have no way of knowing. But what I want to tell you is that Lu Heng's parents abandoned him and it was a crime. I said, there are many children abandoned by their parents in this world. Lu Heng has a partner like you who worries about him, but there are many children who don't even have a partner. Yin Hizu's eyes widened. Really? I made a suggestion for Yin Hizu. When you grow up a little bit, you can go with Liu Heng to protect these children like him. Yin Hizu listened carefully, stood up and ran out. I'll go and tell Liu Heng goodbye, Dean. I smiled and said, Go, Xiao He. In fact, in the original book, Liu Heng is a very protective person. The people under him are all wandering hooligans, most of whom have no father or mother. I don't believe this is a coincidence. Although he has a terrible face and a cold look in the plot, maybe when he was young he also longed for shelter. It is said that some behaviors of people when they grow up are compensation for their childhood. I think, at least this time, I can't let Liu Heng go down that path again. In the first autumn of the course, I announced an autumn outing for all the staff. In the past, due to management and safety factors, the children rarely went out in groups. This time, after a democratic election, the location was set at the Nanchang Zoo. When I heard that the children from the welfare home were coming, the director generously said that the tickets were free and lunch was provided, and they only needed to bear the transportation costs. I checked the information. The Nanchang Zoo has a good environment and spiritual animals. It has also cooperated with well-known companies to shoot variety shows. The director Ji Ming-shu is young and handsome, and is keen on ecological protection and is quite famous. Xiao Fu suddenly remembered something I heard from a friend before, that there is a consciousness named Shaolin who can communicate with all things. He once chose a host named Ji. From then on, the Ji family has the ability to communicate with animals and promised to protect the forest. I looked at the photo of the director and guessed that he was a descendant of the Ji family. The girl who connected to the zoo was named Xiao Ween on WeChat. She had a gentle voice. She carefully arranged to reduce ticket sales and arrange explanations. Xiao Fu uttered that she had the aura of Xiaolin and Xiao Ci, and then disappeared to communicate with her friends. Before the autumn tour, an RUOCHN designed bluebird handkerchiefs and flags for each child, with the teacher's contact information printed on the handkerchief to prevent them from getting lost. 20 or so children were divided into 4 groups, and group leaders were selected. Each of them had a stern face and promised to keep an eye on the team members. At dawn, we set off on the bus. Nanchangzu is indeed full of green. The guy Mui Ix looks well behaved. She is actually the cute girl who tamed a tiger with bare hands in the variety show that year. She greeted the tiger familiarly, Fei Fei, stay away, don't scare the children. The tiger actually backed away and sat down obediently, and the children exclaimed. After visiting the crane garden, monkey garden, and bird pavilion, we had a picnic on the lawn next to the aquarium, watching the swans and eating snacks. After lunch, we entered the aquarium where the director allowed the children to interact with dolphins and beluga whales. Yin Hizu's eyes lit up. Director, the dolphins are so cute, and ran excitedly pointing at the beluga whale. It's hitting my hand. Liu Heng stood silently by the side, looking at the beluga whale named Xiao Ba. Xiao Ba, I rubbed the glass with his nose, and Liu Heng hesitated to reach out his hand, but Xiao Ba actually responded to him through the glass. Liu Heng, who was always silent, smiled and tilted his head with Xiao Ba. The man and the whale had a lot of fun, and our Yuo Chun stood beside me inside. I've never seen them so happy. I looked at the children. When they are older, they should be sent to school. We can isolate the malice that can hurt them for a lifetime, but the scars will only hurt when we care about them. If we don't care, they will be indestructible. After the trip to the zoo, the children spontaneously wrote weekly diaries and drew animals. I simply broadcast the zoo's variety show every week, which became their most anticipated activity. After winter, and IUO Chunand, I wore shopping for winter clothes. When we talked about the orphanage opening for adoption, she suddenly said, "Director, you look a lot like my sister, who is also a teacher." I was slightly startled and suddenly realized that some fates were already destined. Perhaps it was the past experiences that made me understand the needs of these children better. On New Year's Eve, a light snow fell in the North City. The children made snowmen and had snowball fights, but only Yin Hezu sat on the steps with his chin in his hand and looked at the sky. I knew he was thinking about his mother. The snow when he was born became his only connection with his mother. Liu Heng and Ran took him to paint in the snow. He squatted on the ground and painted carefully, but was teased that he looked like a caterpillar. I held back my laughter as a crane. He still painted a red-crowned crane. Seeing his angry look, I softened my heart and said, "Director, can you help you draw one?" He immediately smiled. After the snowy night, it was New Year. When I was 7 years old, I sent Yin Hezu and Ran and Liu Heng to the elementary school next door. On the first day of school, I met them at the school gate. Ran and Yin Hezu looked different, but Liu Heng was calm. I took them home calmly and made cola chicken wings and sweetened our pork ribs. Seeing Yin Hezu eating with a smile on her face, I suddenly felt that all the hard work was worth it. In the evening, I heard a quarrel coming from the back garden. It turned out that the classmates laughed at Liu Heng's birthmark. Yin Hezu and Ran were very angry, but they didn't know how to refute. I hid behind the wall and listened to Liu Heng say seriously, "The dean said that people are different. Some people think my birthmark is cool, and some people think it's weird. It doesn't matter." The dean also drew a Kamen Rider mask for me and said that I was the coolest kid. "Yin," Hezu said anxiously, "we are family, and Iran and I will help you fight back in the future." The three children signed a pinky promise to be lifelong friends. I coughed lightly and walked out, taking them back to the dormitory. Before leaving, I squatted down and said, "If you encounter problems that you can't solve, be sure to tell me. The dean will always be your backer." Yanhizu looked up at me and suddenly asked, "Dean, what does strategy mean?" I was stunned and almost forgot his mind reading ability. The moonlight sprinkled on his face through the window. I hugged him gently and heard my voice as gentle as melted snow water. Strategy. I just want you to know that although this world is not perfect, there are always many people who will love you. Spring will come, the snow will melt, and the abandoned stars can also find their own orbit. He seemed to understand, but hugged me back tightly. "Then I will always love the dean." Ran at Liu Heng on the side also squeezed over, repeating "I love the dean" in a flurry of words. In the darkness, the dormitory was filled with childish confessions. Our Yuo Chun stood at the door and laughed at us. Tears. On New Year's Eve of another year, I was handling affairs in the office. Xiaofu suddenly turned into a ball of light and fell into my palm. "Ling Shi, I don't want to leave. I want to build the welfare home with you. I have a name as Xiaofu." I looked at the faint light in my palm and suddenly my eyes were sore. It turned out that the most touching strategy was never the daily tasks, but the daily interactions over the years. The children wrote Dean in the first line of their New Year's wishes, and they learned to use love to fight the malice of the world. At the door of the office, a glass jar covered with starlights was hung at some point. I took it down and saw that it was a card from all the children in the King Maya class. "Dean, we send you the first letter of spring because you are our star." Yin Hezu wrote in pinyin, "Meeting the dean is my spring." Outside the window, fireworks bloomed in the night sky. I walked to the dormitory with the stars and covered each child with a quilt. The moonlight and starlight intertwined on their faces in their sleep. In a trance, I saw the little girl who looked out the window of the special school many years ago. Finally, she was no longer just holding a candy, but became someone who could light up the night sky for countless stars. The system once asked me what would happen if he and Hizu knew the truth about the strategy. At this moment, I finally understood that love never has a starting point. When he learned to embrace the world with kindness, and when the gray in his eyes was dyed bright by the starlight, this encounter in the name of strategy had already become the most real fetter. The snow fell again, and this time it was a preview of spring. 10 years later, at the graduation ceremony of the South City Police Academy, Yin Hizu wore an navy blue uniform, and the epaulets glowed coldly in the sun. He stood in the queue, his posture as tall as a green pine, but his eyes always followed the figure in the camel-colored windbreaker in the crowd below the stage. I was holding flowers and talking to an RUO Chun with the star hairpin he gave me last year in my hair. Next, please let the outstanding graduate representative Yin Hizu speak. Amid the applause, he slowly walked onto the stage. The moment his fingertips touched the microphone, he suddenly remembered that when he was 12 years old, he recited poetry for the first time on the small stage of the welfare home, and his voice was trembling with nervousness. I stood behind the curtain and made a star sign to him. It was a secret code between them, which meant there are stars in your eyes, so don't be afraid. When I was a child, I always thought that the world was a silent, snowy night, and everyone had a secret in their heart that could not be told. His voice was steady and clear. Liu Heng in the audience suddenly laughed, thinking of the absurd time when they were teenagers in the library of the welfare home, secretly reading each other's minds with sign language. Until someone told me that silence is not a shackle, but a seed waiting to sprout. She taught me to measure justice with the law, interpret malice with kindness, and made me understand that true strength is not the ability to read people's hearts, but the courage to protect people's hearts. I looked at him on the stage and suddenly remembered the little boy who drew reed-crowned cranes in the snow 7 years ago. The police badge on his chest was shining, just like the star lamp he secretly hid under his pillow. In the crowd, and Ran held up her mobile phone to record, and the camera swept across the ring on her ring finger. It was bought by Liu Heng with the scholarship from the police academy. The ring face was two overlapping stars. After the ceremony, Yin Hizu came over surrounded by his classmates, but when he saw the gift in my hand, his ears turned red. It was a wooden star box which contained his awards from childhood to adulthood, an old drawing paper with a red-crowned crane, and a yellowed note on which he wrote when he was 7 years old, "I want to be a policeman to protect the dean." Sister Lingshi, he took the box, his fingertips gently brushing the back of my hand. This mind-reading detective who frightened the suspects in the interrogation room was like a boy confessing his love for the first time at this moment. In fact, I already knew the meaning of strategy. I looked up at him and found that the sunset glow was reflected in his eyes, just like the light of the white whale jumping out of the water in the zoo that year. He pulled out a small box from his pocket. The silver ring was inlaid with broken diamonds, shaped like star racks. When the system said that my favorability was full, I didn't actually understand what strategy completion meant. But later I realized that you are not an NPC who came to complete the task. You are my whole world. Yu Heng whistled, and Ran covered her mouth and laughed until tears came out. In the distance, the cheers of the children in the welfare home came. They took the school bus to attend the graduation ceremony. Xiaofu controlled the drone and spelled out the light words, "The dean is the best in the sky." Shen Hizun Ni. The moment the ring box was opened, the crowd burst into applause, and I saw my tearful smile reflected in his pupils. I suddenly remembered the cinnabar mole on the back of the neck of the baby in his palm on that snowy night 20 years ago. At this moment, it was hidden in the collar of the police uniform like a beating star. So his voice drowned out the noise. "Ms. Zhang Lingxi, are you willing to let me continue to strategize you for the rest of my life?" The wind lifted the hem of my windbreaker, and I put the flowers on his shoulders and took the initiative to reach out. The moment the ring was put on, the bells of the church in the distance happened to ring, startling a group of white doves. And our Yu O Chun raised her camera to freeze this moment. In the background, The children of the welfare home held a banner that read, Brother Hizu is marrying the director's sister. Yu Heng was helping his youngest sister adjust the telescope. Xiao Fu's light grew refracted colorful spots on the ring. Later, Yin Hizu wrote our story into a fairy tale book called Star Adoption Station. The title page was painted with a red-crowned crane in a police uniform, and next to it was written, Every abandoned soul was once a star, until someone taught them that falling can also later become a light that illuminates the world. And I put a ginkgo leaf between the pages of the book. It was picked up under the ginkgo tree in the welfare home with him last fall. On the leaf, there was a small word he wrote in pen. It turns out that the ultimate answer to the strategy is that you taught me that love is not calculation. But the moment I saw you, my heartbeat automatically generated a unique code. Today, the glass jars of the Start Rack Welfare Home are already filled with children's wish cards. The latest one is from a 5-year-old girl who had just been admitted to the hospital. She used crayons to draw the people holding hands crookedly and wrote next to it, Will the director's sister and the police brother be together forever? Yin Hizu drew stars below with a red pen. Yes, because our stars will never fall. The system has long stopped popping up windows, but Xiao Fu occasionally hums a strange tune, which is said to be the interstellar folk song learned from Shaolin. Whenever this happens, Yin Hizu will smile and shake her head, hug me in her arms, and the sunlight outside the window will pass through the glass dome of the welfare home, waving a galaxy on us. This worldly fireworks are ultimately warmer than any strategy code, and our story has just begun in countless starry nights, beside every soul that needs to be protected. In the cycle of love and being loved, it will never end.